All right, we are back for episode 2. It does not feel like it's episode 2, probably because we're running multiple shows, but
Yeah, it feels
okay.
like we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I feel like a professional, not really, but I'm excited. So, today we were, well, first of all, welcome back to Hacking with the Homies podcast, episode 2. So, I am taking your lead today, Mac, on this topic of becoming an MVP developer. And I can say for me, this is definitely something I got introduced to through you and through some of the programs that we've been a part of. So, I'm excited to see how we can continue to bring more people into the fold on this. So I'll let you kick it off today if you want to get us started.
Yeah. So first, my name is Matt Kendricks. I am a hardcore lover of tech, software geek. Also, I with Jessica run Detroit Black Tech, and so really, this topic came from the fact that I work part time as a entrepreneur in residence at TechTown. So for those who don't know, TechTown does many things in the city, but the thing I focus primarily on at TechTown is helping more Detroiters become tech founders. And in doing that, TechTown has a full process on where they take somebody from ideation. So when you have an idea, like you may say, "Hey, I want to be the first person to have a party on the moon," and they'll actually go through and help you vet out that idea and figure out if people actually care about partying on the moon, and then kind of walk you through the process of building out a MVP. MVP stands for minimal viable product, so building up some type of technology that will actually prove out the idea. And then there's other programs like Traction that helps you kind of figure out how to sell that idea and get customers. But what the big thing that we're having an issue with, this, I knew about it before joining TechTown, but really being an entrepreneur in residence, I really get to see this full circle. Is that we have a lot of people that are, Black folks in general are wanting to become tech founders, and we have a whole bunch of those folks, but we need people to help them build their the first version of their product. And so we have so think of it this way: we have a whole bunch of people actually becoming founders, and now we need a whole bunch of people that can help them build the MVP. But that
Right.
pool is very, very small because the people that we're producing right now in these boot camps and other programs, they're more focused on becoming a full stack developer, or they're focused on front end. Nobody's really putting out a set of developers that are focused on MVP. So basically, what this particular episode is on is like, how do you become a MVP developer? And I think there's a couple of different aspects of that, right? Number one, I think that um, if you're thinking about like, from starting your own company, for example. And typically, when you start your own company, being a software developer, there's a lot of things that you need to do in order to build up a robust product, right? And there's a lot of time that takes to build a robust product for a particular customer. And there's only so many of those you can do if you're an individual developer. What I like about the MVP space is that if you want to build a company around being an MVP developer, these applications that you're building are very, very small. I mean, they may have maybe 4 to 5 screens with a buy button.
Right,
But
right.
you know what I mean? They're really simple. And you know this because you've helped at Tech Town around this. They're really simple. So you can actually knock out many of these programs, these MVPs for founders fairly quickly. But it's a different skill set a little bit. Yes, it's good to know the foundations of programming, but with MVP development, we're usually using low code and no code tools, and those are tools that where a lot of times you're dragging and dropping, elements onto a page, and you're building the application by interconnecting these pieces, or you're using some very high level programming language to kind of build an application very quickly. So
Right.
that's what we're focused on. So I don't know. I know, Jessica, I know you taught a lot of the boot camps, so you get the difference here. What do you say, like from the skill set, like the people you like being in these boot camps and teaching these boot camps? Is it an easy transition for people, or is it a totally different thing for people to learn the MVP skill? I have my thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
I mean, I feel like the foundations of it should definitely be similar, and it helps a lot to have more of the technical background whenever you want to use like the low code and no code tools. To me, and we were kind of briefly getting into this, like I feel like one of the gaps is going to be more from the client management, from the project management and scope management side of things, because and I know just as working with a lot of the founders for those MVPs, you know, when you are the technical person who's working on it, a lot of times, and like I have freelancing experience, right? So I have that mindset of like, okay, let's like contain what are all the features we need to focus on, and keeping the project on track is a big part of it. And I do believe you learn that as a part of, you know, boot camps, and typically you have smaller projects and larger projects in the end. But that would be an area that I think, you know, just kind of honing in on, like coaching the MVP developers on exactly how do they manage that type of work. Because even if you go into freelancing, I think this is like a good basis for going into freelancing. And that's something that they don't necessarily teach very well. It's like, hey, here's how to build the thing. But I think that's the easy part, honestly.
No, that's a good point. I didn't think about that as much, but I think I like the way you said it though. This is could be a good entry point if you want to start like a dev shop. You want to be a dev shop. I think getting experience working with founders and building their MVP is a good start because to your point, Jessica, is that these founders also have never. A lot of them have never built a product, and
Right.
a lot of them think things are just super simple, right? And being able
It's so
to like
funny how many little things, like,
right,
I know I work with somebody that's like, "Yeah, just move it 2 pixels to the left," and it's like, "That's gonna take me
yeah,
like 2 weeks, but okay."
yeah, and I think they're anxious to get their product out to the market. So being able to manage those expectations is probably one of probably the second biggest thing in becoming an MVP developer. Like the first one is really understanding the different platforms that are out there. Um, that's important, but I almost feel like number two is equal to number one in regards because managing expectations is a lot. So there's been many times that we've had MVP developers work with founders, and sometimes they're the developers too timid and they don't know how to like tell the founder because the founders in a lot of cases have been, if you look at it from like the programs at TechTown, like they've been working on this idea for 12 weeks or longer. So they
Mhm.
love the idea, they're passionate about the idea, so they want to put all these bells and whistles in. So being able to say like, listen, we're only going to be able to do this within this time frame is probably a very almost like I said, almost as important as understanding the tools. But then I think the next thing is after you learn you understand the tool, you understand kind of how to manage the expectations of the founder. There's also then the next part is like working with the founder just to like through issues that pop up because there's going
Mhm.
to be issues that pop up when building these MVPs because these are a lot of times these MVP platforms they put you in a box, right? You don't have like all the flexibility that you would have if you were building it up from the ground. So there's
Right.
certain things that you're not going to be able to do easily. So sometimes you need to explain to the founder that we're not able to do this. So this being able to communicate that and deal with issues, I think, is the third thing that they need to be able to understand. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and
I mean, like, Go
I
ahead.
mean,
I
those
was going
are
to ask
no,
you
I was
about
gonna
that.
say those are all like foundational to, software in general. I just think it's different when you come into a team where, especially if you're coming out of a boot camp, like we're kind of talking about. If you come out of a program and then you go into a big team, you're going to be mentored on a lot of things. Some of these are going to be responsibilities that belongs to other parts of the company or other parts of the team versus when you are, like I said, you're kind of stepping more into that freelance role, then those are a lot of the things that skills you have to acquire early on.
Yeah, and I think that each one of these platforms, these no-code platforms, have their unique attributes. And so I think that when you first start wanting to become an MVP developer, I think it's good for you to pick a tool, right? And start and get really good at that tool versus trying to learn all the tools. I think understanding that the concepts are the same with all the different MVP tools, but I think becoming good at one particular tool is probably what you want to do. And if you needed to switch to another tool, you can probably easily pick that up. But just try and focus on one tool because there's a lot to that tool. Because once you you kind of figure out how to build something with that tool, now you need to actually get whatever you built. If it's an app, you need to figure out how to get that into the Apple App Store or the Android App Store. And each one of these tools are going to be a little bit different
Yeah.
around that. So being able to understand that is probably key as well. So let's see you have something else. I want to talk about like what is the different MVP platforms that
Yeah.
people love, Um, so I don't know. I have the ones I love, but there's many. But at Tech Town, we've really been trying to focus on a few. Nix Code is one, so that's Nix Code. It started by Sydney Davis. Shout out to Sydney, and she's from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So definitely, you want to definitely check out her platform. And I think her platform is great for doing a number of different applications for customers or for founders. I think that the key is in any of these tools is looking at some of the actual pre-built because I don't have already pre-built I guess you could say I guess templates that you can use. So sometimes look at those templates and kind of figure out if you can use one of those templates to build your founder's application on top of it. And a lot of the no code low code tools have these templates for being able to do things. But what I like about Nix Code is that it has this very robust plugin infrastructure or architecture. So you have plugins for a number of different components. It's like, for instance, for payment processing, there's a plugin there. But another tool that's popular is like Bubble. So Bubble is also a very popular tool. It has a huge community around it. So
Yeah.
you can go on YouTube and you can like you can go Google or search for any type of thing you're trying to solve, and and you can probably find some type of video that kind of explains it. Um, and I don't know, which one did you use when you were doing? Were you using Glide or were you using Bubble when you were working at Tech Town? Just I can't remember.
The last time I believe we used Glide, but
Gotcha.
I kind of inherited that one, so worked with Glide and I think I worked with Bubble. I'm really interested to work with Nix Code because I feel like the last cohort, everybody was everybody was using Nix Code.
They were. I mean, I think they were, and I think mixed code is great. I think that there's certain situations where you want to like use different platforms depending on what the use case is. So I think it's good to to pick one that you want to get good at, but like definitely know all the different tools out there. I'll try and find a link here. I'll put in the notes of there's a little page that talks about all the different MVP tools out there.
Okay.
Glide is another one that's out there. But here goes the thing: is like most of these tools, you're gonna want to call out to an API. So um, the kind of the first thing I would want to do with these tools, besides like getting used to the interface of that tool, is like how do you invoke a API outside of the tool
That's
and
like a
being able
big
to
part.
troubleshoot test. Yeah, because everything is made of APIs, so being able to understand that is great. And then also the other thing I look for is how easily can I demo the application. Like, can I click on a little button and it kind of previews the application?
Right.
Those little things like that makes the development go a lot more smoother. And then the other thing is like a lot of these platforms, kind of lock you in. So you know what I mean. So you gotta understand what is the you have to help your founder know this as well. It's like, how long do you plan to use this MVP? Is it
Mhm.
really just to kind of prove out the idea, or do you plan to like build on top of it for additional features? Um, because you don't want to have to if you plan to use it for a couple of years, you may want to think through like what platform you want to use, all that type of stuff as well.
So when it comes to that, I guess my question is, how do y'all usually guide the founders, because of course an MVP is just supposed to get you over, at least from my experience, it's been that the MVP is getting you to prove that somebody wants to pay for your product, right? But how long are founders using these MVPs, or what's the difference maker in whether I should go from MVP to like get ready to build out, my app from the ground up?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's different for different founders, but I think the real crux of it is basically like some of the founders we work with, like they needed to be able to do things one particular situation was that they needed to be uh, personal identifiable information, PII data, for example. Like if you have an application that is very sensitive to data, like you dealing with healthcare or something of that nature, um, you may want to prove out the idea using this, but long term, you may need to move to a platform that is PI aware or knows or stores the data in a PI sensitive location. The other use case that we see a lot of um, is where they may need to send some automated emails or something, or they have AI enabled things they want to do that's more sophisticated. I mean, now Chat GPT, I haven't had a MVP program since Chat GPT has
I
became so
know
pervasive.
it's gonna be
Uh,
interesting moving forward, I think.
yeah, I mean, because people now because you're literally doing the MVP process. People always say, "Oh, I want to add this AI thing to my application." Like, yo, you got 6 weeks to do this MVP. You're not gonna have time to do all that. But now with Chat GPT, they can call out to the API. They can send over their prompt. They can get results back. And they can make it look pretty. So that's going to change the dynamic of things. But
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, it really depends. To answer your question, it really depends on a number of things. Oh, and the last thing was scalability. If
Okay.
that obviously these platforms, these no code, low code platforms, a lot of them are built to handle a certain scale because these platforms are not necessarily single tenant. There's multiple companies using this platform, and if you get to a point where you're scaling, and you may not be able to handle that platform may not be able to handle the load that you're bringing to it, or the latency or something of that nature causes the application to start malforming. So maybe at that point you start thinking about moving to a different platform. So yeah, I mean it's a number of different things, but quite honestly, I haven't had a lot of those issues yet. Usually, what I find is that people move between a one no code platform to another because they get kind of they get into the development of it, and then they realize this no code platform is more difficult or it doesn't have a feature that they want, so they switch to another one.
Yeah, so that's what I would want to think a little bit more about as we're kind of going forward too is like you said, what are the I mean they're all different. So the pros and cons of different platforms and the specific use cases that works best for different platforms because I do believe in the past I haven't seen a lot of like oh, I'm gonna use this platform because I know it has this feature. It's more like you said, maybe you're already specialized in one, so that's the one that you're using, or maybe the founder already started some type of development beforehand, and so you kind of just go with whatever they want. But that's just from a personal perspective. Since I've been doing this a lot more now, I'm like, yeah, okay, I would like to kind of get to that point where I'm like, I can use the right tool for um, the right type of features they're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. Right now, we're just in such a deficit of
Hmm.
MVP developers in Detroit in particular. I think that picking one and like getting good at that, and then maybe the next time you work with another founder, pick another two. I mean, 'cause they're not going to know either, right? So this is going to be a little bit of trial and error around this. Even I don't know all the. I mean, I know some of this is simply being in at Tech Town and watching founders and developers try and build. I kind of have an idea on what things work, and what things don't. But there's a lot of things still that the market is just so changing, right? Because you got to remember these platforms. Just for those who don't know, is that these platforms they actually because typically you think about how you build an application, you build your database schema, and then after that you build your application on top of that. In these no code platforms, you're usually it's all in one, right? So you can basically go in there and say, hey, I want to have a form for user registration. It allows you to pick the fields you want, and uh, and then it'll handle storing that data inside of its data structures. That's typically how most of them work. But there are also no code platforms where you can store the data in a Google Sheet or an Airtable or some of the other no code databases out there as well. So that's the other part of it is that once you understand the concepts of MVP, um, tools or low code, no code development tools, maybe kind of starting to dig a little deeper into like how do they store their data, things of that nature. My point being here is like don't get too much into the details. Let's just get started in
Yeah,
using these
yeah, yeah.
tools and add it as a tool in your tool belt.
Right. Same thing we teach whenever you're transitioning into programming. Like, don't try to be all the developers. Just pick one language and get good at that. And there's so many transferable skills.
That's a good point. I didn't. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy how similar traditional software development is to MVP development, but there are some pretty big differences as well. I guess my when I say that it's like when you come out of a boot camp, you're being trained to think through like how to handle certain things. Like if you want to be able to like um, create a form again and then submit that, you have to worry about, well, okay, well, how am I going to parse that data? How am I going to store that data? How am I going to retrieve that data? And in these no code, low code tools, you're not worried about any of that because the whole goal is for you to quickly be able to build something that you can prove out without having to worry about the details. And I think that bothers people. Like if you're like you went into this you went into being a developer because you want to be able to like low key kind of like build stuff from scratch and put it all together. And now you come to where you're building an MVP and we're like, no, don't worry about that. I just need you to like drag and drop, build the workflow, and then the platform will take care of the rest. I think sometimes that just blows people mind.
Yeah, but I hope that people will realize this is, especially for software engineers, it's a good exercise in product development. Again, that's something that typically belongs to somebody on somebody else's plate when you're in a big company or even in a team-based setting. But when you're building these MVP apps, it gives you the opportunity to think more about the holistic perspective of it versus just, okay, what's the nitty-gritty details about how I'm going to get this database to like be optimized for whatever type of queries I need to execute.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so like, and one of the things that we're doing here is that Detroit Black Tech is actually going to be running a workshop for 4 weeks. It's a 4 week workshop, and it's going to be the dates. I'm looking here. The dates are going to be starting June 6th through June 27th. It's going to be on a Tuesday from 6 to 7, and we're going to be teaching folks how to be an MVP developer. We will be picking one platform, and we'll be using that platform for this particular workshop. And we'll probably have another set of workshops that we use another platform as well. So we want people again focusing on one platform and learn that one and then move on. You will receive a certificate of completion when you do this workshop. And one of the drivers behind doing this is, besides wanting to get a number of people in the MVP space here, but TechTown has another MVP program starting July 12th. And they're looking for developers and to pair with these founders. So, taking this workshop, and the workshop is going to be free. So you don't need to worry about paying for it. This will give you a leg up if you want to apply to be a developer for the MVP program. And again, the MVP program is really around, pairing a developer with a founder, and in 6 weeks, build up a working MVP that has a buy button. So I think it's a I don't know. I think that program is great, and I think if we can get more people trained up to be developers, I think it'll definitely I think it will expedite the number of startups we have in Detroit, because you'll have developers that can actually build these MVPs fairly quickly.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, I don't know, we had quite a few people joining in today. So I want to say thank you for everybody that has been listening in. And we will have more information to come soon as well. We're kind of towards the end of our time now, but do we want to do a shameless plug? Do you have anything you want to want to plug for us this month?
I think I already did. That was my plug right there, is what I did. So if you're interested in this, send me an email at mac@detroitblacktech.org, and I will get
Put it
you
in the
registered
chat.
into that class. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll get you registered. How about you, Jessica? What's your shameless plug?
My shameless plug is still Thursdays, around the same time. I'm live with 4 different shows, one for each week of the month. So, of course, last week was Crawl Walk Run. This week is Hacking with the Homies. Next week will be Girl Develop It, and then at the end of the month we'll have TrainX.ai. So I've been excited about that, and I am on my 100 days of code yet again. I'm doing 100 days of machine learning this time, and I started on Monday. So there's a few people that had joined me in Discord. They heard my calls out into the the ethernets of LinkedIn, and I asked for people to help participate. So I've been doing a lot of that. So just very excited. Yeah. So you can, if you're already following me on Twitch or YouTube or something like that, then you're already where you need to be to get all the info, or LinkedIn. So all of those shows are always live on Twitch and LinkedIn, and then they also go live to their respective YouTube channels. So I'm doing more to put all the organization together around it, but I'm happy for everybody that's been following and supporting so far. And if you have topics, just let me know. You can DM me on whatever platform you're watching on now, or or leave us a comment and let me know what other kind of topics you want to hear about.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, we are going to go ahead and wrap up for today. So, look forward to seeing folks in that MVP developer workshop. I will definitely be there. Mac will be there, and we'll get y'all started. We'll get y'all started. So, we will see y'all again on episode 3.
Take care.